I thought my mother was my rock, until I discovered she knew my husband was sleeping with my sister and said nothing. Her reason? I didn't want to break up the family. I always believed that my family was my foundation, my safe place. My mother, Margaret, was the strongest woman I knew, wise, loving, and always the first person I turned to when life became overwhelming. I looked up to her, admired her, and trusted her with every piece of my heart. But trust is a fragile thing, and when it shatters, the pieces are never quite the same. My husband, James, and I had been married for 6 years. We met in college, fell in love over shared late-night study sessions, and built a life together that I thought was solid. He was charming, reliable, and the kind of man who made everyone feel important. And my mother adored him. Maybe that should have been my first clue: how easily he fit into my family, how seamlessly he blended into the dynamics between my mother and my younger sister, Claire. Claire was different from me in almost every way. Where I was cautious and structured, she was wild and impulsive. Growing up, she had always been the favorite, the golden child. She was stunning, with effortless confidence that made people gravitate toward her. I, on the other hand, had to work for everything: good grades, career success, even attention from our parents. Still, I never resented her. At least, not until everything fell apart. It started subtly: the unraveling. A misplaced earring in my car. Claire's perfume lingering faintly on James's clothes. Late nights that James justified with work deadlines. A strange tension in my mother's voice whenever I mentioned feeling distant from him. At first, I brushed it all aside. "You're being paranoid, Anna," I told myself. "You're stressed from work, and you're just overthinking things." But doubt, once planted, grows like weeds. One evening, we had dinner at my parents' house. It was one of those normal nights, or at least it should have been. My mother cooked her famous roast, and my father, as usual, sat at the head of the table, half listening to the conversation while scrolling through his phone. Claire was in a particularly good mood that night, laughing a little too loudly at James's jokes, touching his arm absent-mindedly as she reached for the salt, leaning in just a bit too close when she whispered something to him. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be that wife, the insecure one, the jealous one. But then it happened. A fleeting glance. A look that lasted just a second too long. I caught it, James looking at Claire, and Claire looking back. It wasn't the kind of look you give your sister-in-law. It wasn't playful or teasing. It was full of something else, something unspoken, something dangerous. A knot twisted in my stomach, and for the rest of the evening, I found myself watching them. Every movement, every glance, every word exchanged between them. It felt like I was standing at the edge of something terrible, something I couldn't yet name but could feel pressing against my skin like an oncoming storm. After dinner, as I helped my mother with the dishes, I finally voiced my concern. "Mom," I began cautiously, "have you noticed anything strange between James and Claire?" Margaret didn't pause in scrubbing the plate in her hands, but I saw the way her fingers tensed against the ceramic. "Strange? What do you mean?" "I don't know, the way they talk. The way they look at each other. It just feels off." She was quiet for a moment before she let out a soft chuckle. "Anna, you're overthinking. Claire and James have always been close. You should be happy that they get along so well." She turned to me then, a familiar warmth in her eyes, but there was something else too, something unreadable. "You trust James, don't you?" I hesitated. "I do," I said finally, "but something doesn't feel right." She sighed, drying her hands before placing them gently on my shoulders. "You've been working a lot lately. Maybe you're just tired, sweetheart. You need to stop looking for problems that aren't there." Her words should have reassured me, but instead, they left me with an unsettling chill. Over the next few weeks, the feeling only grew stronger. James became more distant, his phone always angled away from me. Claire seemed nervous around me, avoiding eye contact or cutting conversations short whenever I was around. My mother, usually so perceptive, kept brushing off my concerns, changing the subject whenever I brought up my growing unease. One night, after James came home late again, I confronted him. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. "Work meeting ran late," he replied, not even looking up as he loosened his tie. "Really?" "Because I called your office. They said you left at 6. That made him pause. Just for a second. But a second was all I needed. "Are you checking up on me now?" he asked, his tone sharp. "Should I have to?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Anna, I don't know what's going on with you lately, but this paranoia, it's not healthy. You're imagining things. Maybe I was. Or maybe I wasn't. That night, as I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling while he slept soundly, I made a decision. I needed to know the truth, and I was going to find it. Doubt is a disease. It starts as a whisper, a small, nagging thought at the back of your mind. But the more you try to ignore it, the more it festers, infecting everything until you can't think of anything else. And in my case, the doubt had grown too loud to silence. I needed proof. That night, as James slept beside me, I picked up his phone. I had never done this before, never felt the need to. But my gut was screaming at me, telling me that I wouldn't like what I found, but that I needed to see it anyway. His phone was locked, of course, but I had seen his passcode 100 times. My hands were shaking as I typed it in. Incorrect. I froze. He changed it. The realization hit me like a gut punch. He had never changed his passcode before, not in the 6 years we had been together. But now, suddenly, he had. I placed the phone back where I found it, my pulse hammering in my ears. That was all the confirmation I needed. The next day, I called out of work. I didn't tell James. I waited until he left the house, watched as he kissed me on the forehead before heading out the door, lying straight to my face. Then, I followed him. I felt insane, like a paranoid wife in some bad detective movie. But this wasn't paranoia. This was instinct. I kept a safe distance, trailing behind his car as he drove across town. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. Maybe I really was overthinking everything. But then, he pulled into an apartment complex. Claire's apartment complex. I parked 2 buildings away, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I couldn't breathe. And then I saw them. James walked to the door like he had done it 100 times before. No hesitation, no second guessing. The door opened, and Claire stood there, smiling. She pulled him inside. I sat there, frozen in my seat, as the reality of what I had just witnessed crushed me. The doubt was gone, replaced by something far worse, truth. It was real. James was sleeping with my sister. I don't know how long I sat there. I don't remember driving home. My hands shook the entire way, and my vision blurred from the tears spilling down my face. My mind was screaming at me to do something, to storm into that apartment, to scream at them, to demand answers. But I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I drove to the one person I thought I could count on. My mother. When she opened the door, I was already crying. Anna. She looked startled, immediately reaching for me. What happened? I stepped inside, my body trembling. I need to talk to you. It's James. And Claire. Something flickered across her face. Something quick, something unreadable. But I was too distraught to think about it at the time. I sat down on her couch, burying my face in my hands as I tried to steady my breathing. I followed him today, Mom. I saw him go to Claire's apartment. She didn't say anything. They're having an affair. The words tasted bitter on my tongue. Saying them out loud made it all the more real. My husband is sleeping with my sister. Still, she said nothing. I looked up at her, expecting shock, anger, disbelief. But there was none. Instead, my mother let out a slow breath, as if she had been holding it for a long time. And then, quietly, she said, I know. The room seemed to tilt around me. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. What? She folded her hands in her lap, not meeting my gaze. I know, Anna. My stomach turned violently. I felt like I was going to be sick. You've known? This whole time. She finally looked at me then, her expression unreadable. I didn't want you to find out like this. I shot to my feet. You didn't want me to? Are you kidding me? My voice cracked. You knew my husband was cheating on me with my own sister, and you just, what? Pretended it wasn't happening? Her face twisted in something close to regret. But not quite. I was trying to protect you. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Protect me? How the hell is hiding this from me protecting me? She sighed, rubbing her temples. Because I didn't want to break up the family, Anna. The words hit me like a slap. I took a step back, shaking my head. You didn't want to break up the family. She nodded. Claire, she's always been fragile. And James, he made a mistake, but he still loves you. I stared at her in disbelief. A mistake. My voice rose. This isn't forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in an argument. This is an affair. With my own sister. My mother's eyes softened. I know it's painful, sweetheart. But think about what's at stake. If you confront them, if you leave James, It's going to tear everything apart. The family will never be the same. I felt like I was suffocating. Are you seriously telling me to just accept this? She reached for my hand, but I yanked it away. Anna, I'm asking you to think about the bigger picture. The bigger picture? My voice broke. Mom, my marriage is a lie. My sister betrayed me. And you? I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. You let it happen. You let it happen, and you said nothing. Silence. And then, softly, I was trying to do what was best for everyone. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. No, you were trying to do what was best for Claire. Her eyes flickered, but she didn't deny it. I turned away, my chest heaving with every ragged breath. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of that house before I broke apart completely. But before I could step out the door, she said one last thing. Please, Anna, don't make this harder than it has to be. I turned back, my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. You made it harder the moment you chose them over me. And then I walked out. I had lost my husband. I had lost my sister. And now, I had lost my mother too. When I stepped out of my mother's house that night, the cold air hit me like a slap. It was grounding, in a way, reminding me that this wasn't a nightmare I could wake up from. This was real. My husband was sleeping with my sister. My mother had known all along and had chosen to protect their secret rather than protect me. I sat in my car for a long time, my fingers gripping the steering wheel, my breathing shallow. I could feel my world crumbling around me, piece by piece. Where was I supposed to go from here? I couldn't go home to James. That place, our home, was tainted now. I pulled out my phone and, before I could overthink it, dialed my best friend, Lauren. She picked up on the second ring. Anna? What's wrong? I hadn't even realized I was crying until I heard the tremble in my own voice. Can I stay with you tonight? She didn't hesitate. Of course. Come over. I hung up, started the car, and drove to Lauren's apartment on autopilot. By the time I arrived, I was emotionally drained, my body moving mechanically. Lauren took one look at me and pulled me into a tight hug. Talk to me, she said, guiding me to the couch and handing me a blanket. What happened? The words tumbled out of me in a rush. I told her everything about following James, about seeing him at Claire's apartment, about confronting my mother and discovering that she had known all along. By the time I finished, Lauren was gripping her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. That's unbelievable. Your mom knew? And she said nothing? I nodded, staring blankly at the floor. She told me she didn't want to break up the family. I whispered. Lauren scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. Anna, that's not a family. That's a goddamn betrayal. I swallowed hard. I don't even know what to do next. I feel like I have nothing left. Lauren reached over, squeezing my hand. You have me, and you have yourself. That's all you need. I wanted to believe her. But I had spent my whole life trying to hold my family together, trying to be the responsible one, the strong one. And now, the very people I had fought to keep close had destroyed me. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had been hit by a truck. My body was heavy, my mind foggy from exhaustion. Lauren had already left for work, but she had left me a note on the kitchen counter. Take your time. Call a lawyer. And don't let them gaslight you into thinking any of this is your fault. Love you. L. I traced my fingers over the words. Call a lawyer. Right. Divorce. It felt like a distant concept, something I knew I needed to do but wasn't ready to face. Not yet. Instead, I picked up my phone and checked my messages. 20 missed calls. Half from James. Half from my mother. And a single text from Claire. Claire. Anna, please don't do anything rash. We need to talk. I stared at the message, bile rising in my throat. We need to talk. What was there to talk about? How she had managed to justify sleeping with my husband. How long had it been going on? Did she ever feel guilty? I tossed my phone onto the couch, refusing to reply. Instead, I grabbed my car keys. If I was going to face this, I needed to take control. I didn't go to James. Not yet. I wasn't ready to see him, to hear whatever pathetic excuses he had prepared. Instead, I went back to my parents' house. My mother answered the door, looking relieved when she saw me. Anna. She breathed, reaching for me. I was so worried. You weren't answering my calls. I stepped back before she could touch me. We need to talk. She nodded, letting me in. My father wasn't home. He was likely at work, blissfully unaware of the disaster unfolding in his family. I took a seat at the dining table, my mother hovering nervously across from me. I took a deep breath. How long have you known? She sighed, rubbing her forehead. A while. A while. My voice was sharp, incredulous. How long, Mom? Months? Years. She hesitated. My stomach dropped. Years. Tears burned at the back of my eyes, but I forced them down. You knew for years, I whispered. And you let me marry him. She flinched. Anna, it's not that simple. It is that simple. My voice cracked. You chose them. Over me. You let me walk into a marriage that was already broken. And you said nothing. She clasped her hands together, her eyes pleading. I didn't want to hurt you. I laughed, hollow and bitter. You think this didn't hurt me? You think finding out like this, watching my husband walk into my sister's apartment, didn't destroy me? Tears filled her eyes. I thought it would stop. That Claire would come to her senses. That James would. What? Magically turn into a decent person? I shook my head. You don't protect someone by keeping them in the dark. You just make them an idiot. Her lips trembled. I never meant for this to happen. But it did. And you let it. The weight of it settled between us, heavy and suffocating. She wiped at her tears. Please, Anna, don't let this break our family apart. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Our family was already broken. You just didn't want to admit it. She reached for me. But I stepped back. I'm done, I said, my voice steady. I'm done being the one who holds this family together. Her face crumpled. Anna. I turned and walked away. This time, I wasn't coming back. When I got back to Lauren's apartment, I felt lighter. Not better. Not healed. But lighter. I sat down, picked up my phone, and dialed James. He picked up on the first ring. Anna, he said, his voice laced with relief. Thank God. I know, I interrupted. I know everything. Silence. Then a sigh. Baby, listen. Don't call me that. I snapped. You don't get to do that anymore. He exhaled heavily. I screwed up. I know I did. But it didn't mean anything, Anna. Claire and I. It didn't mean anything? My voice was ice. Then why did it happen? He stammered. I don't know. We just got close. You were always busy with work, and Claire, she was there. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Oh, so it's my fault now. No. I never wanted this to happen. But you let it. Silence. I clenched my jaw. I'll be filing for divorce. And you'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. Anna, wait. I hung up. And just like that, I was free. The moment I hung up on James, an eerie calm washed over me. It was strange, really. I had spent the last few days drowning in anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. But now I felt something else. Relief. I was done. Done with the lies. Done with the excuses. Done with the people who had taken my trust and shattered it. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, phone calls, and untangling the life I had once built with James. The divorce process moved quickly, faster than I had expected. There was no point in dragging it out. I didn't want a single thing from him. No alimony, no shared property, nothing. I just wanted to be free. James, of course, tried to fight it. At first, he begged me to reconsider. Anna, please, we can fix this, he had said during one of our last meetings. I made a mistake, but we can get through this. We can go to therapy. We can. I had laughed in his face. Therapy? What was there to fix? The moment he slept with my sister, he made a choice. A choice to break everything we had. I wasn't interested in picking up the pieces. When begging didn't work, he turned to blame. This is your fault too, you know, he spat one night over the phone. You were always too focused on work. You weren't paying attention to us. I had gritted my teeth, my grip tightening around my phone. Funny, I had replied. Because I seem to remember being busy building a future for both of us while you were busy screwing my sister. Click. That was the last time I ever spoke to James. My sister, predictably, tried to rewrite the narrative. She sent me long-winded texts, filled with fake apologies and self-pity. Anna, please, I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. We didn't plan this, I swear. You have to believe me, I still love you. You're my sister. I miss you. I never replied. She tried calling next. I let every call go to voicemail. Then, she showed up at Lauren's apartment. Lauren, being the absolute badass that she is, answered the door before I could. What the hell do you want? She had snapped, arms crossed. I just need to talk to Anna, Claire pleaded. Eyes glistening. Please. Lauren looked over her shoulder at me. I was standing a few feet away, arms folded, my face unreadable. Anna, Claire exhaled. Please. Just 5 minutes. I considered it. Not because I wanted to hear her out. I didn't. But I wanted to see her face when I told her exactly what I thought of her. I stepped forward, looking her dead in the eye. You have 30 seconds. Her lip trembled. I'm sorry. I raised an eyebrow. That's it. She swallowed. I know what I did was wrong, but I never meant to. Spare me. I cut her off. You didn't accidentally sleep with my husband. You didn't accidentally betray me for years. You made a choice, Claire. Tears welled up in her eyes. I hate myself for it. I've lost everything. Mom barely speaks to me. James and I let out a dry laugh. Oh, don't tell me. He dumped you. She flinched. I smirked. Figures. He told me he needed time to think, she admitted. I shook my head. How poetic. He cheated with you, and now he's cheating on you. Did you really think you were special? Her lip quivered, but she said nothing. I sighed, suddenly exhausted. I don't care what happens to you and James, I told her. You are nothing to me now. Her face crumpled. Anna, please. Goodbye, Claire. I shut the door in her face. Lauren whistled. Damn. That was cold. I shrugged. Not cold. Necessary. I should have known my mother wouldn't stay silent for long. A week later, I received a voicemail. Anna, sweetheart. I miss you. Her voice was soft, hesitant. I know you're still angry, and you have every right to be. But please, don't let this destroy our family. Destroy our family? It was already destroyed. She continued. Her voice thick with regret. I made mistakes. I should have told you. I should have done more to stop it. But Anna, we can still fix this. You don't have to cut us off. We love you. Love. That word didn't mean the same thing to me anymore. I deleted the voicemail. 3 months later, my divorce was finalized. It was a strangely anticlimactic moment. There was no grand confrontation in the courtroom. No last-minute pleas from James. No dramatic outbursts from Claire. Just a judge stamping a few papers and handing me my freedom. Lauren took me out to celebrate that night. We drank wine, ate pizza, and laughed until we cried. It was the happiest I had felt in years. I moved to a new apartment. I started going to therapy. I took a long overdue vacation to Italy. I thrived. Every day, I woke up feeling lighter. I no longer had to tiptoe around a broken marriage. I no longer had to pretend to be okay with a family that had betrayed me. I was free. And then, one day, I got an email. From James. I hesitated before opening it. It was short. Pathetic. Really. I regret everything. I miss you. I wish I had been better. I read it twice. Then I laughed. And then, I deleted it. People say revenge is the best form of closure. But I disagree. Happiness is. Not the kind of happiness that comes from spite, but the kind that comes from moving on. From waking up every morning without a weight on your chest. From choosing yourself over people who never deserved you in the first place. So no, I didn't get revenge. I got something better. I got my life back. And that was worth everything. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking Reddit cheating stories happening around you.